is Jeff from Point Perfect Canine. I have some clients here with me. This is Dan and Aaron and Mr. Douglas. We're going to just have a little chat about their process, and I know that I don't get a lot of content out that's not the training content of the pet side of things, mostly because I don't like carrying cameras in people's houses. I like the sessions to be a little more personal than that, so I don't like drag the camera in, and it's really easy to train bird dogs with a camera on my head because nobody's paying attention. I'm in the field. So we're just going to talk about a few questions, talk about Mr. Douglas, and a little bit about our process and what we do. So how'd you get Doug? I know Doug has an interesting history.
So Douglas was my idea. Dan was working away from the house enough that I wanted some form of like an alarm system or a dog. So we chose a dog, and he was at Purebred Pit Bull Rescue out of like Cincinnati-ish, Ohio. And he was in a lovely foster home, and I saw a picture of him, and his little ears were the cutest. And so begrudgingly, we went and met him somewhere down by Columbus. We met the Carlin, his foster mom. And we took a walk, and he was a little bit afraid at first because he did not like men at all. Yeah. And within like 5 minutes, my kids were walking him on a leash, and he was just happy to be a part of our group. But he was found in some like either an abandoned home or a neglect situation with his litter mates, and his back leg was crushed. And they wanted to amputate, but the foster mom said she was willing to carry him for the first 6 months of. So he got some sort of bracing and was just in his kennel or being carried for months, and he was able to save his leg. But he also just was super fearful and not used to being around a lot of activity because she had other dogs but not children. So he was really excited to be with us, but had no idea how to behave.
Didn't know how to be a dog in your pack.
Yeah. He would, he was pretty out of control. So anybody else that came over got the full brunt of Doug.
I do remember the first time I came, it was intense. Doug was the first of the client dogs to attempt to bite me. Remember when he got my shirt in the yard over here?
He was really afraid.
He was.
Well, I don't know if that's the.
But that was something we worked through pretty quick. That wasn't bad. So what specifically had you reach out to me?
I think I found you on Facebook.
Yeah, I think so. I think I posted on one of the North Canton groups.
Yeah, I think it was the Talk of the Town or like one of the North Canton.
There was a specific event though that was like, well, that's enough.
Oh, yes.
You know, like yes. He's either going to end up dead, we're going to have to put him down, or he's going to need to change.
Yeah, we had friends over, and they had their new baby with them, and the dog was asking. The one thing Doug knew when we first got him was how to tap the door and tell us he had to go potty. And we're trying to get our two sons, who at the time were 7 and 10, the responsibility of putting him on a leash and taking him out to go potty. And we didn't realize the 7-year-old couldn't find a leash, so he just used like a 12-inch piece of rope and like looped it. And so when the smaller children, neighbors were driving their like little kid 4-wheeler down the road, he tried to bite the tires off and scared them very badly, and they swerved and then came back to correct, and they almost fell off. Thankfully they didn't get physically hurt, and the one tire like took all the skin off of his leg, and it was a scary day because it could have gotten so much worse. You know, he could have tried to bite the girls, he could have bitten the girls, he could have gotten hit by a car. So thankfully we have a really forgiving neighbor, and he talked to Dan about, you either need to get a fence or.
Yeah, he had pit bulls, and he knew
was
the deal.
kind.
Yeah, he knew how they worked.
He knew they were crazy.
Yeah, that's not an uncommon story. I mean, dogs in moving vehicles and any kind of things like that, they can definitely incite a lot of emotions in a dog to make them do things that they shouldn't.
So the crazy thing is that if those girls walked into the yard, he probably would have just licked them. And
yeah, no, I would agree with that.
But they were on a moving thing, and he was just. he's always been really good with kids, even kids he doesn't know. It was always adult men that would make him more ferocious. At least that was my perception.
Yeah.
Mr.
Well,
Douglas.
For the most part, yeah. He does try to take socks off of people.
That's
Kids,
one of
too.
the things I tell all the clients. I don't want to undog your dog. Like, dogs are still going to do dog stuff. So let's get out of situations instead of making your dog a robot.
Yeah.
Because that's why we love them. They do weird stuff, right?
Yes.
I ain't crazy.
So when we started, what was your first impressions of the process? Because I came and I did a consultation. Doug was not my friend. He became my friend quick, but he was not my friend at first. And I kind of laid out what was going on and gave you guys your first homework assignment.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think up front about the process that I was putting forward for everybody?
I knew it was going to work immediately. Like, the first session, I was like, "Oh, this is going to work."
This
Like,
guy
you're
knows
teaching
exactly what
me
he's
things
doing.
that I had never even heard of, and they were simple and they made sense. And you're like explaining how the dog actually thinks and what he's thinking when you do these certain things.
And how
you're
what
like,
we were doing, we're making it
oh
worse.
yeah, exactly. Like what we're actually doing, which is like, how we were raised with dogs, which is basically to treat them like one of the, your kids or whatever, which is not a good move. So nothing we were going to do was actually going to fix any of the problems that he had. So,
Yeah.
The first impression was that you were easy to get along with. It felt like you were a friend coming over, but you were very professional. And you spoke to us in a way that made sense while explaining that we were just as much of the problem as Douglas. But you didn't make us like cry, and I wasn't offended. I was like, dang, he's right. Okay, and so once I realized like this is as much as us being trained, then it was like, this is gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
That is definitely the hardest part of the process, is have to go into people's house and tell them that what they're doing is probably their fault. It is very difficult. So after we went through the process, it was, I think we were right around 6 weeks, right? Start to finish. How did you like the end results? I mean, I'm just going to say right now, like, this would have not happened. Like, you and Doug were not friends at all, if I'm not wrong. Like, you guys couldn't walk, couldn't run together.
No, he's a lot better on a leash. He wasn't, before you, I couldn't take him on a leash. I wanted to kill him every time I walked him.
Right. I remember our walks around the
frustrated.
neighborhood.
I want to just like leave this dog somewhere. But no, he listens for the most part. I mean, way better than he did. He doesn't bark at people when they come in the house as much. Even like the mailman, he doesn't like bark at the mailman as much anymore. For no reason, he does a lot more like under his breath, like stuff. So
curmudgeon-y.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like going from one window to the far end of the house and barking like a maniac the whole time.
Over the same people he sees every single day.
Right.
He's kind of, for the most part, stopped jumping on people when they come in too, which is nice. A lot of people have said like, "Oh, he's so much better," which is true. He is.
So you got me when I walked in, but that's okay, huh? You haven't seen me in a few months, huh? So a little bit more like, how does Doug kind of fit in with the family now? I mean,
Dan doesn't swear at him as much.
Nobody ever swore at Douglas.
Dan doesn't threaten to take him to the pound every day. No, it used to feel like our days in the evening were run by like how bad the dog was going to behave. And I was like physically, apparently palpable that I was like anxious about people coming in the house. And so that, it just feels more like we have a pet and less like we have a dog who's like kind of terrorizing our day or our evening.
So what do you think was one of the keys to your success with Doug?
Paid attention and listened to what you had to say.
This one's kind of a trick question. This was a question for me. One of the big keys to Doug's success was you guys did the homework. When I instructed and we talked about it and made sure before I left you guys understood it, when I came back it was very clear that it was done, and it was even clear like the boys were even a little engaged. They did pick some stuff up. Like I've seen differences, but part of the program that's kind of tough for me is if you guys don't do the things when I'm gone. I mean, I'm not here enough to really train your dog. You are training your dog. But I think that was one of the biggest keys is you guys really like bought into what we were trying to accomplish and what we were trying to do. And we're actually doing it while I was gone.
Yeah.
And every time I would come back, it was like more progress was made while I was gone than when I was actually here, which is kind of the goal of everything.
Consistency and like, you know, we would have conversations on like a daily basis, like, "What did you feed him out of your hand?"
The feeding,
Yeah.
feeding him out of our hands, I
Yeah,
think was the beginning of him realizing like, oh, you're in charge.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like I thought I was in charge the whole time, but he didn't think I was in charge. And so that was probably the homework he gave us that was the most like eye-opening. Like, oh, he will listen to me if
Yeah,
he
for
knows
sure.
that I'm, you know, not the alpha,
Just be like,
but
you know, I can now like look at him and like put my hand up, and he'll like, okay, I'll stop. Like when somebody comes in the house,
Right.
Yeah. I can just be like, no, and he's like, okay,
Okay, Dad.
whereas before he would just run me over and go
Yeah.
to the door.
for sure. Or try to get out the door. I mean, we had situations where he literally bolted out of the door
Right.
after something.
He knows
the
we're
Amazon
talking
truck
about him too.
or-
Look at him.
Yeah.
I know, it's so shameful. It's okay.
What would you guys say is your favorite command that we covered? What do you use the most?
Here.
Yeah,
You use here the most?
yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
When he listens to.
He's a good boy.
I won't say it or he'll.
Right? Right? He's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to listen right now, if we're just sitting. No, I would say almost every client that I have has picked a little bit of a different one. Some people really like the placing commands to make the dog go somewhere and stay there while they do something. But the recall is a huge one. That's kind of why we start it first, to make sure that we have the maximum amount of coverage on that one. What would you guys say, if you could say anything to potential future clients of Point Perfect Canine? What would you want them to know, if anything?
So many things.
Yeah.
Put in the time, and if Jeff's giving you homework, it takes like 10 minutes twice
it's not
a day.
a lot of time at all.
And your dog he gives you the tools if you just do the tools and listen, and the clicker and the feeding. And I mean, 6 weeks flew by, and it's like we had a different dog. It's worth every minute, and it's worth the money.
Douglas, I'm so proud of you, right? You have no idea. You have no idea, Mr. Douglas. Huh.
Like, we used to take walks with the leash and my shoulder would hurt, and now it's like it's
He
night and
doesn't have to
day.
wear a leash.
Well, I'll carry the
Yeah.
leash and I'll have the e-collar, but
Yeah.
that might, more than here, like a command. I think that you helping us with the e-collar was
The collar conditioning.
Yeah.
it was huge,
Well,
because
just like what you taught us on even putting a leash on him and where to put it. Like
Right.
I was like, oh, he
We've
actually
been doing
listens
this
when
wrong.
I like, hey, come this way. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll come that way. Where before it was like,
Right.
we wrestled him.
Making everything meaningful is important.
And we were talking to him too much. You were like, just simple. Like,
Yeah.
we would be like explaining
I'm
to
trying
him,
to, like, give him a
why we
lecture.
we would be lecturing the dog instead of just using commands. Yeah. Which, you know, when you say it out loud now, it feels embarrassing. Like, what were we thinking? But
we didn't know anything.
Well, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, a big chunk of dog psychology and working with dogs is, you know, they're very complex, simple creatures. They fall into our family like our children. So we want to treat them as such. And at some point you can. I mean, he sat right here through this whole thing on the couch, just like he was,
Right.
you know, part of the deal.
He did it.
But we do a lot of things for us when we're working with the dogs. It makes us feel better to talk a lot because we think that we're giving them everything we need.
Right.
But it was just,
Oh, now
You
you're
got,
gonna do
buddy.
that?
Got your
No,
dragon.
you
That's
can't
not
have
for
that.
you.
Can't have that.
Oh, thank you. That was sweet.
so, all right. Well,
You
I'm
know,
very
this-
proud of you guys. And I'm very proud of Doug. And I'm glad that we got the results that we did get. And I'm glad that everything is going well. I said, I haven't seen you guys for a couple months now. It was this summer before football
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So it was
Probably
early
6
August, I
months,
think,
yeah.
was our last one. So
He's still doing it.
he's still doing good.
And we had not in our training played fetch. He would always go get the ball. He would never give it back.
Right.
And just a few days ago, I came home and our 11-year-old was in the yard teaching him fetch with the e-collar,
Right.
and he was learning.
Yep.
Like he was, and
Yeah.
so like, I don't know. It's just been great because now our kids can play in the yard with him without the fear of him like bolting. It's
Awesome.
great.
Thank you. Thank you
He's
guys.
looking at you like, are you gonna make me do stuff?
Do
Nope.
you have treats in your pocket? You
I,
used to
I
have
do
treats
not
in your
have my
pocket.
treat bag, buddy. I don't have my treat bag today. No treats. You're being good without them.